In this section, we'll be learning how to work with databases in MongoDB. This includes pruning data from existing databases and collections. We'll go over backup and restore of a database and review some additional backup options. Finally, we'll review security practices in MongoDB, including how the file system, CPU, memory, and network all factor into securing your MongoDB instance. In this video, we'll cover pruning data from database collections. In particular, we'll discover the selection criteria to ensure that we remove only targeted data. We'll learn how to drop entire collections and databases. We'll also learn how to drop entire collections and databases. We'll start by importing some data. For this, we use the same JavaScript file import method we used in previous videos. To do this, we call Mongo, identify the database name, and highlight the JavaScript file that contains the documents we want to import. We can then log into Mongo and confirm that the records were imported by getting a count of existing records. We do this by first using the database and then calling count on the student collection. We see 29 records, so we're all set. In a previous video, we learned how to query data in MongoDB. Before I remove data from MongoDB, I always start with a basic query. This makes it possible to verify that I will only remove the data I'm interested in removing. In this case, I want to remove the student record with a first name of Wendell. Based on the results of the query, I can see that my remove command would only remove one record. If from the output it's not obvious that there's only one record that's been selected, you can always change the output to count, which verifies that only one record meets this criteria. To remove the record, all we need to do is change the find to remove. As long as I leave everything else exactly as it was in the query, I can be confident that it will only affect one record. We can see in the output that one record was removed. We can further verify that only one record was removed by getting a count of existing records. Here we see that there are 28 records where we started with 29, so that looks good. We can even go one step further and run our original query. Since we think we removed it, we would expect to see no results come back. That is the case. We removed Wendell's record from MongoDB. As you can see, remove uses query by example, just like find. So it follows that an empty example document will return all documents. Since we know that an empty example document will return all documents, it follows that calling remove with an empty document example would match all documents and effectively remove all documents from a collection, although it would leave an empty collection. We can see that the remove command uses query by example, just like find. Since we also know that an empty example document returns all documents, it follows that calling remove with an empty example document would match all documents and effectively remove all documents from a collection, although it would leave an empty collection. Here we can see that it removed 28 records, and when we run count on the student collection, we see that there are 0 records left. We can see all available collections using the show collections command in MongoDB. In the case that we want to remove an entire collection, there is a command to drop a collection. In this case, we would call db.student.drop, which will drop the entire collection. When we run show collections again, we see that the student collection no longer exists. Similarly, we can drop an entire database. First, let's see what databases are present using the show dbs command. Now, if we call db.dropDatabase, we can remove the database and all collections that it contains. We see from the response that it has dropped the database. We can confirm this by calling show dbs again. Note that all remove and drop commands are final and permanent. There is no undo command. This is one reason it's important to have a good backup and restore process, which we'll cover in a later video. In this video, we learned how to remove using query by example to identify the records we want to remove. We also learned how to drop entire collections and even databases. All remove and drop actions are permanent and data cannot be restored. In the next video, we'll learn how to back up a MongoDB database.